When it comes to policy issues, most times people are pulling in different directions to protect their own interests as businesses. And we cannot blame them for that. Because you have invested money, and when you talk about investment in production, in the real economy, it's not a liquid investment. It's not an investment that you can decide that tomorrow I'm no longer doing this, I'm going to switch over to this. You are locked in there. So anything that will pose a risk or a threat to that business or to that investment will be resisted. Unfortunately, again, in the Nigerian economy and even in the general discussion about the economy, we often don't discuss trade policy. It's one area that we hardly discuss. There's a lot of discussion about exchange rates, about inflation, about macroeconomic stability, about oil reserve, about oil price, but no sufficient, robust discussion about trade policy. So that leaves the space to just sometimes a lot of arbitrariness. People who have the contact, they have the influence, they just walk up to the Ministry of Finance, put this item on import prohibition list, increase the tariff on this, reduce the tariff on this. Sometimes some of our members, you get to the port to clear your cargo before you know that there's been a change in tariff. A lot of arbitrariness. And unfortunately, even within the discussion, the space of discussion of this ACFTA, the loudest voice in that discussion is the Manufacturers Association. And I often argue that this economy is about 53 or 52% services. The manufacturing is about 8% of our GDP. Then you have other sectors like agriculture and the rest of them. So when you leave a major discussion just to a single sector, sometimes it has implications for the outcome of that discussion. And the interesting thing about most of the issues of trade is that the Manufacturers Association has the ears of the president. Whatever they say on this matter is what will happen. I'm aware that there has been a committee set up by the federal government. But if you see the body language of the president himself, you know that he's not inclined to be part of this African Continental Free Trade Deal. There has been a lot of movement left, right, and center. Ambassador Sakwe held a series of consultations around the country. They prepared a report. The balance of the report was in favor of signing. But when the report was submitted, another committee was set up to look at it. And the reason is that sometimes those who are at the highest level of policymakers equate some sectors as being equivalent to the totality of the economy. So whatever those sector players say is what is regarded as what they call national interest. And it's because, again, most of the other sectors, the level of advocacy, the level of involvement, the level of discussion is so low. I'll give you an example. Just before Kemi Adeosun left out of this scandal of certificate and so on, there was a fiscal policy document released which spelled out some new tariffs. And the tariff on medical equipment, which we don't produce here, tariff on medical equipment was moved from 10% to 70%.
From 10%
to 70%. Medical equipment. When I saw it, I was wondering, who on earth would have pushed this through? Tariff on syringes was moved from about 5% to 70%. Syringes that we use in hospitals. You see, there are often arguments that, okay, we have local capacity and all of that. But all of these things need to be empirically validated. Otherwise, the citizens suffer a lot of things as a result of poor policy, especially from trade. They suffer, but they don't know where the sovereign is coming from. In managing an economy, although I represent the interests of business people, but whoever is at the very top managing the economy should take into account the interest of everybody. You have to take into account the interest of the consumers, the welfare of the people, and the interests of the business people. If policy is tweaked in a way that you are only interested in what businesses say or what will bring profit, at the end of the day, most times the citizens suffer a lot. So when we talk about the issue of poverty and some of these things, a lot of it also comes from wrong trade policies.
Yeah, but
the kind of tariffs you impose on things, the kind of import prohibition you put on things, although some people may be smiling to the bank, but the citizens will be paying more, sometimes for inefficiency, sometimes because of the monopoly situations that have been created, and all of that.
I don't think that Nigerians need to be afraid of this. The stage where China was, I went to China the first time in 1983. Just as I said, I'm so old, I won't be around for the end, but I went the first time in 1983, and there was not a single car in China at that time. By 2008, of course, they were the largest manufacturer of cars, also the largest consumer market of cars. So there was an economic miracle in China. And yes, they delayed their WTO. But the truth is, our economic miracle feels a lot closer. We're only a few structural things away from just taking off in every sphere. I'll tell you, one little story about the diaspora. I was in London over the holidays. It's been a long time since I've been in the cold during the Christmas. It doesn't feel like Christmas for me as a Canadian unless it's a bit cold. I went to see Antony and Cleopatra on December 31st. Fantastic production. So Antony was played by Ralph Fiennes. Out of the next 5 actors on the card, 4 were of Nigerian origin. So wow. Sophie Odokan, Tunji Kassem, 2 others. So you have a story from 1st century BC, Rome, Egypt, written by 16th, 17th century English playwright, being played at the highest level. 4 out of the 6 top actors were Nigerian. So we have nothing to be afraid of. And I think if, when AFCTF goes, it will be part of driving Nigeria to stop being poor and start being rich.